Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. Like I was saying to Larissa before, um, she was saying to just relax and pretend like I'm talking to my friends. And
Or
I said, I'm extra excited because I am actually talking to friends who enjoy raw food, which I can't say is true for my normal social circle. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me. And is it okay for me to get started?
please,
All
please
right.
go right into it.
So, they asked me to do a detox theme today, which I thought was so appropriate considering a lot of us probably indulged a little too much on Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving. And so I came up with a menu that I eat fairly regularly on my own, and it makes me feel fantastic. And so I hope it makes you feel a little better today, and maybe you'll start incorporating some of this into your daily life, or maybe some of you probably already do. But we're actually going to do a detoxifying green juice. And this is something I drink almost every single day. And then we're going to do a massaged kale salad with a creamy pesto dressing. And then we're going to end with a dessert of what I call raw vegan frozen yogurt, which is something I normally would have for breakfast, but it makes a really nice cleansing, sweet treat at the end. And you'll feel really good because it's got a lot of lemon in it, which is super cleansing. So let's get started. We're going to start with our juice first. I love to make a juice or a smoothie at the beginning of my food preparation. I think it's kind of a nice way to get extra nutrients, and it's just, I love food and I love eating and consuming. So it's a nice way for me to just enjoy the food preparation process even more. So we're going to start with, yeah, you can come in. Yeah, I've got my partner here. He's going to actually control my overhead camera so you'll be able to see my chopping process. So we're going to start with a head of romaine. I got a huge one right here. And by the way, everything I'm doing is going to serve 2 people or one very hungry person, which, to be honest, I could probably eat most of this on my own, but I've been doing raw for about 6 years now, and I've really built up a tolerance. So you could do either one. So we're going to do a head of romaine, 1 lemon, 1 green apple, or if you only have red, that's fine. And I've also used lime before, so if you don't have lemon, lime is fine. And we're going to do a little bit of ginger. I'm just going to do maybe about this much, and I'll cut that in a second. And oh, cucumber. I love cucumber in my juice because it's super high in silica. It's high in water, so it's hydrating. The silica is really good for building collagen in your skin. You need a lot of vitamin C, protein, and silica helps to build collagen. So my whole thing is natural beauty foods. And so I'm always trying to come up with nutritional tips for people who want to improve their skin, their hair, their whites of their eyes or whatever. So, okay, let's see. We're going to start with, another thing we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to make a juice in a blender with a nut milk bag. Of course, you can use your juicer. I use mine every day, but I thought this is a great opportunity for me to teach you guys some tips because when I travel, I really want to have my juice every day. And I actually travel with a blender, which I know might be extreme to some people, but it's like my oven, as somebody who consumes raw foods mostly. And I learned how to make juice using a blender and a nut milk bag so I can still have my juice every day. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start with our most watery ingredients because we need that as the base in our juice. So I'm going to peel this lemon with a knife. So maybe we want to switch the camera. Sure. And you can see me do this. My sister actually asked me once how I peel a lemon, because I know at first you think of peeling an orange, but lemons are just too tough to do it that way. So this is how I do it. I learned this from watching all the fruit cart vendors in Los Angeles. If any of you have ever been here, you've probably seen the fruit cart vendors. They're on so many different corners, and they always peel their citrus like that. So we're going to start with the lemon and the cucumber. just gonna give this a quick rinse. And since we're using the blender, it's important that we make the pieces small. You don't want to overload the blender. It definitely is, I guess, a little more challenging than using the juicer, but it's really worth it being able to do this. Because like I said, it's nice to be able to have my juice when I'm traveling. So Larissa was telling you guys that I became plant-based when I was 16. And I definitely use that term to, in a general way, because I became a vegetarian when I was 16. I gave up all meat, and I never liked dairy so much. So it was actually really easy to become a vegan a few years later. I'll continue that story in a second. So here I have my cucumbers, which are high in water, and my lemon, which is high in water as well. And I'm gonna put this in the blender. So again, I have 1 cucumber and 1 peeled lemon. And we're gonna start off really slow because our goal is to get the water base for this juice. So I'm on low, and I'm gonna use my tamper. Oh, by the way, if you don't have a Vitamix, and you have just I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. If you have a blender that's maybe just not as high speed, then try adding a little water just to kind of help get things moving. It's going to taste fine. Believe me, I've done it before. I'll gradually increase the speed. Okay, here we are. So we've got our water base now. So this is going to allow us to, yeah, let's put the other camera on since I'm going to try to do other stuff now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so you can see it's actually kind of a thick, watery consistency. It's not super thin, but it's going to be enough to get everything moving. And so now we're going to use our romaine. And if I were using my regular juicer, I would definitely juice this part. But since I'm using my blender, I'm actually going to set it aside and I'm going to run it through my juicer later so I don't waste it. And we're going to cut these into some smaller pieces. Do this. Like that. We really have to work with the blender. We have to work with what we have. And I'm a big believer that in getting creative and figuring things out. So like I said, when we travel, I really try to eat as raw as possible. And that's why I travel with my blender. I'm going to actually blend this first and then come back and continue chopping. It's almost like a smoothie consistency. All right, now I can do everything else. So I'm also going to show you some other travel tips, like how to wash and dry greens without a salad spinner, because that's another thing I miss very much when I'm traveling. And it's really, I realize it's not that hard to do a makeshift salad spinner. Okay, so as I was saying, I became a vegetarian when I was 16. I gave up all the meat. The year before that, I gave up fast food, which I don't know. It always feels so weird to say that because it's been so long since I ate it. Now I'm going to take my apple. I got to rinse this real quick and take this cable off. And we're going to cut this into really small pieces. But yeah, I gave up the fast food when I was 15, which was so hard to do. That stuff is so addictive. But then within a year, I got rid of all those cravings. And then I became a vegetarian and started upping my plant intake, which I didn't realize, like, that's so crazy that I wasn't eating that many vegetables before I became a vegetarian. And I noticed I started feeling really good. My life was super stressful in my house. And I didn't realize how stressed out I was until I started feeling better. And that was my first lesson that what you eat really affects your mood. And so a couple years later, I decided to become a vegan. I'll just let that one go. And then I'll tell you more about when I went raw later. Okay, so I've got this in my blender, and I'm gonna just really plunge it to get it down. Start off slow, and then increase the speed. All right, here we go. We got our green smoothie that we're going to turn into a juice. And I'll show you how I do this. So I've got this one of these giant Pyrex measuring cups, and you can use any bowl really. Whenever we travel, we stay in Airbnbs, and I just find whatever, a mixing bowl, a pot that you would normally cook in, and then I always have my nut milk bag. And you just put it, you don't have to attach it like this, because sometimes the container is too big. You can just hold it. And we're going to pour this in, and then we're just going to strain it. Oh, thank you. I have my partner here who's helping me out, which is super helpful. Okay, so here's what it looks like, and we're going to take our time doing this. If you try to go too fast, it's going to be a big mess. I have certainly had the pulp squirt up in my face before, so we don't want to do that. Okay, so I became a vegan when I was 19. And you know, it was kind of hard, I have to admit. I was 19, I was living in Jacksonville, Florida, which is where I grew up. And I knew one vegan. It was somebody I was dating. And that helped a lot, actually. He taught me quite a few things about what to eat, how to get full. Because the thing about going plant-based is you have to eat more food. And a lot of people don't understand that. And whenever I coach people, it's amazing how this comes up every single time. People always say, I'm so hungry all the time. I don't understand. I'm like, you have to eat more food. You eat a lot, which is so awesome if you're somebody who's maybe an emotional eater or something like me, or somebody who just likes to eat, you know, just really enjoys food. It's really liberating to actually have a food lifestyle where you're free to do that. All right, so now we've gotten pretty much all the juice out. Thank you. And we just need to get out our glasses. And I would normally drink all of this by myself on a regular day, but we're making a menu for two, and this is part of our meal. So I am pouring this in 2 glasses, one for me and one for David. Okay. Here you go. So, all right, so we're going to drink this while we make the rest of our meal. So next, I actually want to do the dessert first, because it's going to go in the freezer while we eat our salad. And you don't have to do this. You can blend this and eat it immediately, and I think it tastes good. I like the texture just fine. But this is a good trick for if you want to get a firmer texture that's more like ice cream. So just let me grab my frozen bananas. We're going to get about, I don't know, 4 to 7, depending on the size of the bananas, depending on how hungry you are. And we're going to do frozen yogurt. And we're gonna need a lemon. I'm gonna grab a fairly large lemon because I really like the flavor. And I'll get more water. So I'm gonna use the same trick I used for making my juice, where I'm gonna get my water from my fruit instead of water, which is fine. The water is really fine, you guys. It's just that I want to get more flavor, so that's why I do this. So I'm gonna peel my lemon the same way as I did before. I am using a steak knife, by the way. I find that it's easier for peeling the citrus. I also use steak knives for chopping tomatoes. Anything that's kind of fleshy and soft, I find it helpful. So we'll put this in Vitamix. And we're going to liquefy the lemon. Easy. So now I'm going to put my frozen bananas in. And because we're using very little liquid, I want to break these up into small-ish pieces. So I'm going to go about this size. And if they're not all that small, it's really not a big deal. But I'm going to start with 4 bananas. No, it's okay. I got it. I know I have to go through this every single day with them sticking together, but it's worth it. They taste so good. If you guys have any tips on a more efficient way of freezing these bananas, I'm totally all ears. So I think I did 4.
I'll gladly teach you how to have that not happen. And
I would love it.
You don't have to have that fight.
I would love that. And then my hands freeze, you know, and I have to run them under hot water.
None of that is necessary.
Okay, great. Okay, so this is about how many I have. You know, I think I'm going to add 1 more. No, you know what? No, I think this is good. But of course, feel free to add more if you have a really big appetite or you just really, really like banana ice cream. So now we're going to blend this up. We're going to go very slow. I learned this trick actually from somebody on Instagram that you don't have to add so much liquid if you go really, really slow. So I'm going to start it on low just to kind of chop the bottom parts up. I'm just going to go for it. All right, let me switch the camera. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like. So let me get out my. So here's the consistency. It's really, really thick. And we're going to put this in our serving bowls and then put them in the freezer so that they're ready for us whenever it's time for dessert. Really excited to have this for my first meal actually, because it's kind of early where I am, at least for me. It's like, what is it, 9:30 here? Which maybe for some people that doesn't seem early, but I definitely have the musician tendencies to stay up late and sleep a little bit later. Okay, we're gonna put these in the freezer. See, they actually look pretty great already, and I would eat it like this. But since we're making a whole meal, we'll just put it away. And yes, my kitchen is very, very small. I definitely have a city apartment here. All right, so now that we have our dessert ready to go, we have our green juice, which is loaded with tons of minerals and vitamins, phytonutrients, antioxidants. It's time to make our main course. So we're gonna do our kale salad. Let me just rinse out my blender real quick. Actually, yeah, would you mind doing it? Thank you. All right, so I have two kinds of kale here, and it's up to you which one you want to use. I love them both. I have Tuscan kale, and then I have curly kale. And I'm going to use Tuscan kale today. I'm kind of on a kick with it. And but if you want to use the curly kale, I just recommend, unless you like the stems, by all means eat them. I'm not a fan. I just find them too hard to chew. But what I like to do is I'll just rip it like this, and then I can get the leaves off pretty easily, and on the other side, do the same. So I'll keep this. I'll probably add that to my salad. So I am going to use a salad spinner, but I'm going to show you how to make your own salad spinner with whatever you have on hand. So first we're going to take the kale, and for the Tuscan kale, I just take the whole bunch. And like I said, I'm not a big fan of the chewy stems. I'm going to cut them off, and I will use these for a juice in the future. I collect all the stems from my juice, from my salads throughout the week, and then I run them through the juicer at the end of the week with a green apple for some sweetness. Okay, so why don't we switch the camera to see the chopping? So I'm just gonna fold this as much as I can, make it a little more compact. And we're gonna do some thin slices. Kale was challenging for me to enjoy raw at the beginning. Like many cruciferous vegetables, it's really tough. And by cruciferous vegetables, I'm referring to things like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. They're kind of tough. And so a lot of people have a hard time not only just chewing them, but digestion is very difficult. So some people prefer to steam their cruciferous vegetables. But you know, I really love being able to get all the nutrients intact. So I like to eat it raw. And I have found that cutting it small and massaging the cruciferous vegetables really helps, which is what we're going to do today. Okay, here we are. So let me fill this up with some water. So if you don't have a salad spinner, here's what you can do. You can take a mixing bowl. Oh, let's switch the camera. You can take a mixing bowl with a lid, or a mixing bowl with a plate, or we were recently at an Airbnb, and they had this, it was almost like this rectangular shaped Tupperware, and it was really deep and kind of wide, and I used that as my makeshift salad spinner. So what I did was I put all the greens in my makeshift salad spinner, my Tupperware, and then I put the lid on it. And let me show you. So let me just show you. So what I did was I put everything in there, filled it with water, then lightly take the lid like this and then drain it. And then you just cover it up and you shake it. You just turn it in, you become the salad spinner, basically. And then you do the same thing. You kind of drain it very lightly with the lid loosely on top. It's very easy. Where was I in my story? I became a vegan. I was dating a vegan. That's what it was. I didn't have any vegan friends except for him. But this was in 1999 in a southern city. So, there weren't any vegans there. So it was a very unusual thing. But I felt so good. And so I went to the library and I got all these different books on veganism, mostly cookbooks. I did get a few of the philosophical books, but I really just wanted to learn the recipes. So I studied all the cookbooks I could find. And I learned how to become a pretty good vegan cook. And I would impress my friends. They would come over. And that was always super fun. It's always fun to feed a non-vegan a really good vegan meal. Okay, so this is all dry. I'm going to put this into my mixing bowl. Then we're going to make the dressing mix.
Bella.
Yes.
Oh, hi. Do you happen to know, does your salad spinner have a brand name or just generic salad spinner?
It's a Gourmia, Gourmia.
Thank you so very much.
Yeah. I can't believe how much I use this thing. I have to admit, when I first bought it, I was like, does anybody really use a salad spinner? Because I was so used to buying the pre-washed and pre-packaged. And ever since I got this, now I only buy the loose heads of lettuce and greens, and the taste and the texture is so much better. Obviously, if you need the pre-packaged stuff, it works, especially when you're traveling or you're in a hurry. But it's definitely a good investment. It's cheap too. Okay, so this is done. I'm gonna make my dressing now. So let's get our blender out and let's first prep the ingredients. Oh, I just realized I forgot to put the ginger in our juice. Sorry, you guys. You can add it to your next juice tomorrow. All right, so we're gonna use a celery stalk. And the reason why I'm doing celery is because I am respecting the lifestyle of 80-10-10, and I'm not adding salt. I'm not adding any miso paste or anything. We're going to rely on a natural source of sodium from celery. This is actually kind of puny, so I'm going to get another one. But you don't have to do two, especially if you have a big stalk of celery. And then also, the reason why people add salt to their food is to enhance the flavor. It's not for the salt itself. So it's kind of irrelevant if you can find other ways to enhance the flavor. And so another really good ingredient for enhancing flavor is lemon. So we're going to add some lemon juice and garlic. I love garlic so much. There's so much flavor in it, and it just makes everything taste really, really good. And I am using 2 cloves because I like it. But if you're somebody who doesn't like a lot of flavor, you might want to use just 1 or even half. I remember when I was first, excuse me, starting out as raw, I used a recipe that called for 2 cloves of garlic, and I was like, oh, I cannot do this. So I started with half a clove, and then I worked my way up to 2. Here I am. So this might be a little much if you're just starting out. So just keep it in mind and maybe taste test along the way. And then the fat base for our dressing is Brazil nuts. And I'm going to do a cup of Brazil nuts. So let me just measure this. And then to make it a pesto, we definitely need basil. So I'm going to do a cup of loosely packed basil leaves. Let's see. All right, so you can see it's not, I haven't shoved it in, it's just really loose. When it's raw, it's very potent, the flavor. I'm gonna put maybe a couple more leaves in there. Okay, so I'll add the garlic. And then let's chop up the celery. That's my compost bin. All right, so I'm not making super small pieces or large, just whatever. It's gonna blend just fine. And then we're gonna add the juice of the lemon. And then some water. So I'm gonna start with half a cup of water. I don't want to add too much. It's better to start with less water when you're making a dressing and add more as you go to figure out what the consistency is that you prefer. So I'm just gonna add a little bit. So this is a whole cup. I filled it up halfway. So maybe that's like a quarter cup I'm starting with. Add just a little bit more. And then we'll blend and we'll figure out what the right consistency is. So I don't know if you can see this, but it's actually pretty thick and I prefer it to be much thinner than this. So I'm going to add the rest of my water. So again, that was half a cup of water, 1 cup of soaked Brazil nuts or not soaked. It's okay. You didn't soak it, just add a little bit more water to get it to a thinner consistency. The juice of 1 lemon, a cup of loosely packed basil leaves, 2 cloves of garlic, and I did 2 very small stalks of celery, or you could do 1 big stalk of celery. Did I leave anything out? All right, so this is pretty thick. Let me grab a spoon and I can show you. So here's the consistency. I wonder if I should make it. You know what? I'm gonna add just a little bit more water. I want it to be just a little thinner. So I'm just adding maybe 1 tablespoon. I like that better. So here's our consistency. Okay. Before we massage the salad, I'm gonna prep the other ingredients that we're gonna add to the salad. The main star is definitely the kale, but I really, really like trying to add as many nutrients as possible to my bowls. And plus, I really, really like adding a lot of color. So I always try to choose the most colorful ingredients I can. We're going to use purple cabbage, half of a red bell pepper, and a carrot. So let's start with the purple cabbage. And I'm only going to use a small, should we use the overhead camera? Let's do that. I'm going to use just a small amount. I always end up cutting too much of this stuff, but I can always save it for tomorrow. This much. I'm just going to do thin slivers. Purple cabbage is also a cruciferous vegetable, so it can be a little tough to chew, which is why I try to go as small as possible. Okay, so put that to the side. I got my purple, and I've got I already used some of this, so that's why I have a half. I'll do a half of my pepper. And I don't have any formal chef's training. I've only taken 1 cooking class, but what I learned was you always want to make everything about the same size. It's just easier to chew. It's more enjoyable in your mouth. So I'm going to try to make my peppers a little bit as close as possible to the same size as the purple cabbage. Okay, so moving on in my raw vegan story. So I was a vegan for a little while. And then when I was in my 30s, I developed high blood pressure. And this was such a shock to me. I could not believe it when I went to the doctor. I thought I was immune to everything, but apparently I was wrong. And the doctor really wanted me to go on medication. And so I didn't want to. And I said, I'm going to go home and I'm going to do some research and I'm going to see if there's something I can do. And I learned about raw veganism. And so I tried it for a month. And wow, what do you know? My blood pressure went down. It was like a miracle. And so then I became super obsessed with raw food. And that's how I ended up here. Okay, so I'm going to use a julienne peeler for my carrot. You certainly do not have to have a julienne peeler, but I love the way it looks. It makes the slices of carrot really, really thin. You can, of course, just cut them into matchsticks, and that would be fine. Or you can cut them into thin discs. It really doesn't matter. For me, I'm always looking for a nice visual representation because I like to take pictures and post them. But of course, not everybody's doing that. So, all right, so we've got our toppers. I am going to be adding some microgreens that I bought yesterday. Oh, you know what we forgot in our dressing is the Thai chilies. This is so important. Can we switch the camera back, sweetie? I forgot to add one of my other favorite flavor elements. I love spicy. So if you don't like spicy food, I would recommend starting with maybe one, or if you really don't like spicy food, half. And you don't even have to use it at all. But I'm just going to throw this in my blender real quick and blend that up because I will be very sad if I eat a salad without a chili in it. Okay, so now we're ready to put our salad together. And I am going to ask you to switch the camera again because we're going to massage this. Now, some of you are probably familiar with massaging your greens, and others maybe have not done it before, but this is a really, really good step in learning how to eat raw food. Because like I said, cruciferous vegetables are really tough, not only on the chewing process, but on our digestion. And when we massage them, we break down the cell walls and we make them softer, and they start to take on a texture that's a little bit more like steamed vegetables. So I'm not going to start with the whole thing here. I'm just going to pour a little bit. And then, like I said before, with making our dressing, we'll add more as we go if we need to. So I'm starting with about, I think that's about half of what I made. And then we're just going to dig in. And we'll do this for a few moments. And so actually take a look at what it looks like right now. And then by the time we're done, it's going to shrink way down. I think I should have saved my my raw vegan adventure for the massaging part because this takes a moment. But I guess I could tell you that that was 6 years ago whenever I decided, I did the 30 days hardcore and I felt amazing. And I was definitely like a new convert running around telling everybody about it. It was definitely annoying to everybody who knew me, but I was so high on this feeling that I got from the raw food. And of course, for me, it wasn't easy to just make the switch overnight. I know some people were able to do that, but not for me. I loved food and I loved cooking and I loved all the years I had spent learning how to make vegan food. It was such an accomplishment for me. And so to give it up was just, oh, that was a hard thing for me mentally to decide. But I decided by the time I'm 40, I'm going to be a raw vegan. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of time to just little by little make it a daily occurrence. It really didn't take that long. I gave myself a 5 year, or, well, yeah, I guess almost, yeah, about 5 years. I gave myself about a buffer to really get it down, but it didn't take me that long. It was really within the first year that I started to get a routine. And I just really wanted to eat this food every day as much as possible. And then, of course, as enough time goes by, it just becomes habitual, just becomes the way you eat. Okay, so you can see how this is really shrunk down a lot. I'll bring this up a little closer to the camera. And it's almost like it's kale, so it's not going to be like steamed, but it's definitely softer than before. If you were to do this with spinach, it would definitely be like steamed spinach. It's pretty amazing. And of course, you can make this salad with other greens like Swiss chard, collards. I've never used mustard greens. I imagine you could do that. All right, so let's plate our salads. Looks good. David, are you excited to eat some kale?
Very.
My partner actually doesn't like kale. But maybe he'll change his mind after eating this delicious dish. All right, so we're gonna make sure, I'm really obsessive about the color situation. So I like to start with the darker color. I'm gonna start with some purple. And then my red. Like I said, I always make too much cabbage. I can't really chew through all of that, so I'll save it for tomorrow. And then my carrots. And then finally my microgreens. And I have broccoli microgreens. I just got these at Sprouts. You can use any microgreen, it doesn't matter. And then there we are. Voila. Why don't we switch the camera?
Looks beautiful.
Thank you. So yeah, here we are. While you guys are eating the salad, I'm actually going to put together my frozen yogurt. I'm just going to add some raspberries to the top. That's it. Because it's breakfast time for me right now. But yeah, if you have any questions, I want to know. And David, do you want the frozen yogurt now?
Later.
Okay. So here we are.
Well, I just want to tell you that you're getting some great comments.
Oh, that's
Really
nice.
are enjoying this show. You look so calm and comfortable making your food. It's obvious that you've done it a lot and you're just doing a great job. I even put in the chat that I'm not a fan of most kale salads.
Oh, really?
But this one looks really good. So,
I hope you like
done
it.
indeed. Well done indeed. I hope you had a ton of fun doing your show. And we all thank you. And again, folks, if you enjoyed the show, please say so in the chat box, because Bella will get a copy of the whole chat. Obviously, she couldn't read it while she's doing the show, but she's gonna, she'll review and see what everybody had to say. So please, if you enjoyed it, feel free to comment, because the comments will go straight to Bella.
Bella, and I cannot believe it. Just in 40 minutes, you did 3 dishes, and they look so spectacular and just amazing. This just tells you that you don't have to struggle in the kitchen and you don't have to waste a lot of time in the kitchen.
No.
Literally in 35, 40 minutes, you can have a full, complete dinner or lunch or breakfast ready. And
Yes.
that's unbelievable. And it's good for you and looks so delicious. And I love your comments and I love your vast of knowledge that coming through while you're cooking. Thank you very much for doing that. And appreciate you waking up early. I know you are on the West Coast, and you'll be basically your breakfast is ready. So that's a benefit.
I got the whole first half of my day done.
That's right. Here we are. I hope everyone have a beautiful, healthy week. You can try different variations of salad and yogurt and juice, and please send us the pictures. We thrive to see your creations. And have a wonderful week. Healthy and wonderful week, everyone.